Hi, so earlier this week I pitted my 1,000 points of Nighthaunt against 1,000 points of Idoneth Deepkin. This was an Idoneth Deepkin player I'd played against before. The battle report for that went on the old channel and I lost. This was at a time as well when I was wanting to try out a few different units. The units I'd sort of intended to be using in larger games, I thought I'll give them a run out in 1,000 points. So I didn't have my black coach with me on that particular occasion. Not that I'm saying the army I put out wasn't strong enough. I think it absolutely was. I think I just made mistakes with it. But I know the Idoneth Deepkin player was a bit disappointed. They wanted to try out their Leviathan against my black coach. So here was the chance. Here was the clash of the titans, so to speak. The Leviathan against the black coach. 1,000 point Nighthaunt against 1,000 point Nighthaunt. So let's have a little look what happened. So for deployment, first of all, I had sort of slightly more units. So basically, no matter what happened, my opponent would be able to choose who got the first turn in the first battle round. And in the roll-off, the Idoneth Deepkin player got to decide. So she, of course, got me to deploy first. Why wouldn't you if she knows she's going to finish first anyway? The objective we were playing, which again, every time we do a battle plan, we never actually use it. It was the take and hold. So we each had an objective in our deployment zone in the middle, 9 inches away from the edge. And if any player from the third battle round onwards had captured both, to capture it, you had to have at least 5 models within 6 inches of it. And and of course, if both players have got that, then you need to be the one with the most. And if anyone had both of them in turn 3, it was over. It was over. Didn't come to that though. Never seems to do. And so the way I deployed is I deployed black. I usually put my black coach down first because that's got the best chance of being able to move the greatest distance. And then alternated between, place something down, put something in reserve. Place something down, put something in reserve. So in reserve went my Banshees, my Spirit Host, and my Guardian of Souls, Wizard. So what I deployed there was the Black Coach, the Knight of Shrouds and Ethereal Steed, which was my general, which, as I typically do in the 1,000-point games, was given a command trait which allows him to raise up D3 slain models within range, and also an artifact which makes him a wizard. And I gave him Soul Cage, which is a spell that means you can, if you use this on an enemy unit, until my next hero phase, they're not allowed to retreat, and they have to go last in the combat phase. And then a unit of Hex Wraiths, my Guardian of Souls, incidentally, as well as their normal collection of spells, also took Shade Mist, which cast on a friendly unit means that any attacks against them will be at -1 to wound. So we deployed like this, and my opponent, again being quite canny, chose for me to go first, knowing full well that there's not a lot I could do about it. I can try and race across the battlefield. All I'll do is put myself in position for a charge. So it's quite difficult. My natural inclination, of course, is to get ahead as far as possible. But I was concerned about the Leviathan. I was concerned about it. And I'd worked out in advance, in terms of a theoretical clash between the two, they're fairly evenly balanced. That being said, the Leviathan has an ability that, when it works, it can do D6 wounds, and, if that gets hold of you, that can swing it. So it's one of those things that a lot of behemoths get, really nasty ones, where it's like one attack, and if it comes off, you hit and you wound, and it can do D6 damage. It's one of those where if it doesn't work, which most of the time it won't, okay, it's not working. And if it does, wow, so bit dodgy, bit difficult to try and play the percentages with something like that. So what I did is I moved generally forwards, but a bit cagey. Not as far forwards as I could have done. I tried to move more to the right, as you can see here. The Banshees and the Guardian of Souls I put in a fairly advanced position, but still not very close to the Leviathan. Usually I try and zone those in and try and charge into something. I thought, oh, no, for this one. I certainly didn't want to try and attack both flanks. I thought that would be foolish. I want to attack one side, really. So I tried to be relative to the right. The Spirit Host, however, you will notice, I could have actually placed them there without putting them in reserve. I was a little bit concerned about my objective. And I was concerned that I could get bogged down and easily by turn 3 be really bogged down and not have captured my opponent's objective. I really didn't think I'd be able to capture my opponent's objective unless I actually just destroyed all their units, whereas that Morsar Guard could make a beeline for it. All right, there's not enough of those in the unit, there's only 3 in the unit to capture it on its own, but it could nonetheless be joined by something else. And I just thought, I'm not risking it. I'll put the Spirit Host in the way. At the very least as a speed bump, but to be fair, you know, they can put up a fight. They'd be out of range of the General, of course, in fact, all my heroes, so they wouldn't get Deathless Minions, but they still have their 4+ unmodifiable armor save. But that was pretty much all I could do. I, you know, cast Mystic Shield on the Hex Wraiths, and that was pretty much it, really. In terms of my turn. So again, a typical thing, I always say this, if you get to decide who goes first in the first battle round, then get your opponents to go first if they're not going to be able to do very much. I couldn't do very much at all, and so that's exactly why my opponent put me in first. So the Idoneth first turn, very much moving forwards. They really wanted to get that Leviathan in against the Black Coach. Now, of course, I'd much rather it got in against the Black Coach than against my Banshees. Even though, you know, the Black Coach is no better defended. My whole army is 4+ unmodifiable armor save, and within range of a hero, which both of those units were, gets, you know, the Deathless Minions as well on a 6. So that was all fine as well. The hero, by the way, for the Idoneth Deepkin was a Tidecaster this time. In the previous game, they'd taken a Soul Render, so they took a Wizard this time. That way they'd be able to try and unbind some of my spells and also cast some of their own. I have to say, though, I haven't really thought about this too much since. It seemed to be very quiet, the Wizard, so I'm not sure if it maybe took the wrong spells. I know quite a lot of times when she was trying to cast spells, I was just a little bit too out of range. So maybe, you know, took spells that might have in theory been good, but maybe too short range, who knows. So that's how it sort of progressed in there. And then, you know, they went in with the charge. Morsar Guard charging into the Spirit House, Leviathan charging into the Black Coach. And this was it now. Would the Spirit Host stand up to the Morsar Guard? And would the Black Coach be able to do anything against the Leviathan? In actual fact, you know, the Spirit Host did okay. They were okay. They didn't really do much damage back, but they didn't take a massive amount of damage either. And the Morsar Guard did use its Voltaic ability that it can use once per battle and do some damage. So that was okay. They held up. The Black Coach, you know, wasn't fantastic. It took a couple of wounds, you know, so it stood up, but it only managed to deal about 3 wounds in return. So for both the Leviathan and the Black Coach, that was under par for what you might expect. And then the rest of it, that was pretty much it. Like I say, nothing really happened in the magic phase. There was some shooting attempts that didn't really do a lot of damage either early on. So then, battle round 2. At this point, I will also point out that the Black Coach, you see, at the start of each battle round, not your turn, not your hero phase, as you might expect. It's really weird the way it works out. At the start of each battle turn, you roll 3d6. For every 4+ you get a level on your Black Coach, up to a level 5. On the first turn, I got just 1 4. Okay, you know, that's first level. All that does is mean at the start of my hero phase, I can heal up D3 wounds on the Black Coach, raise up D3 slain models of a unit in range of me. So that wasn't coming in useful there. Onto the battle round 2, I rolled the 3 dice and got no 4+ at all. So after 6 rolls, I only got 1 4+. That stuck it at level 1. That was disappointing. That made it, you know, not as... Some of those levels make it particularly good in the combat phase as well, re-rolling all 1s to hit. Because in this case, some of my attacks would get to re-roll 1s to hit against a unit of 5 or more models. The Leviathan is not a unit of 5 or more models. But the Idoneth Deepkin won the roll for that, so they got to choose who's going first in Battle Round 2, and of course they chose to go first themselves. So, again, it was just largely moving up here, but a lot of the combat was very much... Oops, sorry, I put that in wrong. Was very much based upon consolidating and carrying out those combats. Now, unfortunately, the Leviathan got its snapping attack on. And it did, and I failed my armor save on my Black Coach, and the D6 wounds did 6 wounds. A few other attacks went through as well. And it was left there. There was one attack left that would do double damage if I failed an armor save. And I had 2 wounds left. I failed the armor save. And that was the black coach gone. Which was hugely disappointing. I'd only done 3 wounds in return. In what, combat-wise, is a roughly evenly matched units. The Leviathan costs significantly more points because it has a few extra bonuses as well. But then again, so do I. But so it was disappointing. But the Leviathan has that. It's one of those units that has that potential. You know, when it's on song, very, very dangerous. Never mind, as I say, what you're on average going to get. So the black coach was gone. It was looking a bit dicey because the Leviathan had only lost 3 wounds. That's it. So when I got my turn at last, what I did is I thought I had to go for it here. I have to go for it. Ordinarily, what I'd have just liked to have done is to have my Murmurn Banshees crash into the side of it to support the black coach, with my general potentially moving much further to the left to support the Spirit Host and the X-Rays, and my Guardian of Souls remaining to support the Murmurn Banshees. In the event, I had to go for it. I couldn't hold back. The Leviathan had to die. What you have to bear in mind is, this is Battle Round 2. In Battle Round 3, the Idoneth Deepkin go first with all their units in the combat phase. There is no alternating. They go with all of their units in the combat phase. In both combat phases, because there'll be 2, I really didn't want that happening. I did not want that happening. So I thought, I'm going to have to go for it. I'm going to have to go in with the Murmurn Banshees. I wasn't going to be able to get them all in either in the event, as you'll see in a moment. Get my general around the Knight of Shrouds and Ethereal Steel. Get the Guardian of Souls in even. The Hex Race I moved to sort of get onto the Morsar Guards to try and crush those before those Namati Thralls started making their way in. This is actually where the Idoneth Deepkin player had it was a bit unfortunate, really. The Namati Thralls, which come in later in the next battle round, have an awesome ability. You know, for a basic battle line unit, they have an awesome ability in that they do extra damage. They have extra attacks against units of models with either 1 wound or 4 or more wounds, I think it is what it is. Unfortunately, what they were heading towards was a unit of Hex Race where the models have 2 wounds, and a unit of Spirit Host where the models have 3 wounds. So the only 2 wounds values in the game where it doesn't get its bonus. So that was bad luck. But yeah, so the Hex Rays shaped up that. I did actually think that the thing is, the Hex Rays have this ability, which so far has proved utterly useless. If they move over an enemy unit, in the movement phase they just pass over them, then for every Hex Wraith that does that, you can roll a d6, and on every 5+ it does a mortal wound to one of the units they passed over. You sort of choose. So I was thinking, I was as close as you could get here to the Morsar Guard. I thought, I'm going to move right across them and then charge in. You know, didn't happen. I couldn't get the one on the 2, in fact, on the extreme right to be able to pass over them and still finish more than 3 inches on the other side. It was not possible for me to even get a few of them over and the other ones going elsewhere. It was really annoying. You've really got to be parallel to the unit and start off very close to it as well. They started off very close to it, but you really have to be parallel to that unit to be able to make it work. So it didn't. I've never been able to use that ability with them. Never mind. So charging in. So the Hex Race went in. The Murmurn Banshees, unfortunately, although I got the charge off, I only got it off on a 3. So I was not able to get all the Banshees in. I got most of them in, but unfortunately not all of them. Even with the pile-in move, there was not really enough to get in. There was a little bit of terrain around there as well, which you can see, hopefully. The Guardian of Souls and the Knight of Shrouds. So everyone made their charge rolls at least. The last time I played this player was when my Grimgas Reapers, which I had in that game, got a double 1 on a charge, which is going to happen from time to time, and then got completely smashed. They were proper glass cannons. They could have done decent damage if they'd have got the charge on. In actual fact, they didn't. So no such worries this time round. My black coach may have gone, But this was now what needed to happen. So the Knight of Shrouds he used the command point to give the Mermorn Banshees an extra attack. The Mermorn Banshees are I call them my assassins in chief. They are awesome. They only have one attack by default. It's 4s to hit. That's not amazing. 4s to hit. 3s to wound, a bit better. But then, once you've got your wounds, it's -2 rend. So even against the Leviathan, that's saving on 5s. And then D3 wounds. And then, of course, with giving the command point to give them an extra attack, that's basically doubling their potency. Because it's giving them, to anyone else, that's one extra attack. To them, it's doubling their attacks. And they did me proud. They did a lot of damage to the Leviathan. The Knight of Shrouds did a lot of damage. Well, it did decent damage to it. The Guardian of Souls did some damage. Unfortunately, the whole thing was left on 1 wound. Really annoying. I thought I would get it. I didn't. The Leviathan, in return, of course, it chomped some Banshees, but it didn't kill them all. So the Banshees actually did better than the Black Coach. Lasted longer. Took fewer wounds. And the Hex Race and the Spirit House actually did a pretty good job on the Morsar Guard. Got it down to 1 model. And actually, it took a battle shock test. And this is where I made a bit of an error. Because it just made its battle shock test. And then I realised later on, too late, that actually it should have fled because I'd completely forgotten that my Nighthaunt reduced the bravery of models within 6 inches. So actually, it should have had 1 bravery fewer than it did have. And actually should have. So I should have been able to finish that unit off there and then. Unfortunately didn't. There you go. That's the importance. See, I even create my cheat sheet to go through, and so I don't forget anything. The problem is once you've played a few games, you start to get a bit cocky. Oh, I know this now. I don't need this. And then you forget something important. Which is exactly why I make the cheat sheets. Anyway, never mind. So then it was battle round 3. And the Idoneth Deepkin player won again, so they got to go again. Now, this was the turn, remember. This is where it's super important. The Idoneth Deepkin, in both of the combat phases, are going to get to go first. Everything is very much in the balance here. It's been recovered to a certain extent, but that Leviathan is still alive. Shouldn't have been, but it is still alive. I'm a little bit concerned. But then again, so is the Idoneth Deepkin player. They've got their Leviathan on 1 wound left, and they've got no way of healing it up. But everything else started to, of course, sort of move down there. The Leviathan retreated back out the way. The Marty Reavers moved a bit so that they can basically try and shoot the hell out of my Banshees. In an attempt to try and just destroy that unit. If they'd have wiped them all out, there's nothing I can do about it. If I make it to my next turn, there is something I can do about it, because my General can raise up D3 models, and my Guardian of Souls has a spell, Spectral Law, which allows them to bring back D6 models. If I can get it off, of course. If it gets unbound, then I can't. The Namati Thralls, of course, are eyeing up the Hex Race there, and they went in there. So it's all looking a bit... There's 2 sort of battle lines here, and it's looking a bit dodgy. So for someone who wanted to concentrate on 1, I ended up splitting it into 2 anyway. Just freak event. So it looks a bit semi-dodgy here. But, the Hex Wraith took heavy casualties, and the Morsar Guard was finished off at last. It didn't have much left. So, that was sorted at least. And then into my turn 3. So although some Banshees were killed off, the unit itself was not. I was able, with a combination of the D3 models returned and the Spectral Law spell, to raise some more back up. And that allowed me, then in the movement phase, the Spirit Hosts are now out of combat because the Morsar Guard are dead. They came around to try and go into the Namati Thralls. My Knight of Shrouds, I felt that my Mermon Banshees and the Reavers and the Guardian of Souls could take on the Reavers. The Leviathan, by the way, you might think, why am I ignoring that? I probably should have had it removed on this particular still. In the magic phase, I fired off. It had 1 wound left, remember. So what would you do in that situation? Well, I got my Knight of Shrouds to fire off an Arcane Bolt. which I got off, mortal wound, dead. So actually, at this point, that Leviathan wasn't there. So that's a bit of a mistake on my part. So that there, obviously, if it had not, I would have run into it. But what that allowed me to do was to go off and menace the Tidecaster. So into charges. The Spirit Host charged into the Thralls. Everything charged into the Reavers. And my Knight of Shrouds charges the Tidecaster. And basically, even though my opponent got to go first each time, the Namarti Reavers were not able to make sufficient inroads. I don't think they actually destroyed anything, actually, thinking about it. The Hex Wraith stood firm. They only had 2 models left, but they stood firm. And then when it came to my turn to attack, the Knight of Shrouds did kill off the Tidecaster. The Myrmidon Banshees and Guardian of Souls killed off the Namarti Reavers. And my Spirit Hosts, they were absolute heroes. Magnificent. Rolled, and I'd like... With the Spirit House, they need a 5 to hit. 5s or more to hit. But if they roll a 6 to hit, then that's an automatic mortal wound. 4 of them. Absolutely amazing. It's like just took the heart out of the Namarti Thralls. So they weren't sort of really going anywhere. And they were just polished off at this point. And there you go. And that's sort of how that finished. So from that point where my black coach just went, and it was looking a bit grim. And at that point, my entire hopes were on the Myrmidon Banshees gaining revenge on the Leviathan, and I had to commit both my heroes into it, and the other units just trying to hold up, because without support from the heroes, I didn't think they'd be as effective. I mean, for a start, I wanted my Knight of Shrouds over there, not only to give them the Deathless Minions, which may or may not be useful, but to be able to raise up D3 slain models as well. That was not going to happen. So yeah, I went from that position to, in the end, getting this. It was another tight game. This time it sort of went my way. We'll have to sort of find out if there's a decider at some point. I don't know when I'm next going to be able to play another 1,000-point game. However, in December, in about a month's time, we're going to be having a small 1,500-point round robin type thing. At that point, again, I've got Nighthaunt ready to go. It's not like a super destructive one. Apparently, some people are taking very unpleasant things, like big nasties. They don't really have those for Nighthaunt, really. The Black Coach is nasty enough, quite frankly. There is a Morn Ghoul, which I have sent off for, but I'm not sure I would use it. It would make a very small arm if I just filled it full of high points value things. But Nurgle is a possibility. I have got some Nurgle models to assemble and paint if I do that. So I haven't painted anything for 2 weeks. I have to get busy with that. But I'm getting those models. If I have them ready, I'd quite like to try the Nurgle out for that. And if I don't, then I've got the Nighthaunt already painted. They're all fine to go. I'm trying to get Lady Alinda into it. I think I will actually get Lady Alinda in, because I quite like to try her out. But anyway, there we go. That's this particular battle report. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, comment down below. And until next time, I'll see you later.